What's up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Victoria, and today I'm sharing the most intense story of my life, one that involves betrayal, heartbreak, an unexpected inheritance, and the sweetest revenge you can imagine. The day they called me worthless, I had $67 to my name. 5 years later, I had $52 million and the power to destroy them. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because stories like this don't come around often. Trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail of how I went from being thrown away like garbage to becoming a multi-millionaire with the power to completely destroy the people who hurt me. This story starts in the most devastating way possible, in a hospital hallway, with words that would change my life forever. Picture this: it's a Tuesday morning in Portland, Oregon. I'm 28 years old, sitting in a sterile hospital corridor with my husband James and his mother Evelyn. We're waiting for test results that we've been dreading for months. After 3 years of trying to conceive, countless doctor visits, and thousands of dollars in treatments, Dr. Williams finally had our answer. The words irreversible infertility hit me like a freight train. My polycystic ovary syndrome had progressed too far. The damage was extensive and permanent. But here's where the story gets really ugly, guys. Instead of comforting me, instead of being the supportive husband and mother-in-law I needed, they turned on me like I was their worst enemy. Evelyn, my mother-in-law, looked me dead in the eye and screamed, "Worthless woman, what good are you if you can't even give us grandchildren?" James, the man I had loved since college, the man who promised to love me in sickness and in health, just stood there with this look of pure disappointment on his face. Then he said something that shattered my heart. "We spent a fortune on your treatments, all for nothing." Can you imagine? The two people I had sacrificed everything for were looking at me like I was broken merchandise. Like my entire worth as a human being was tied to my ability to produce biological children. Now, let me give you some context about the Wilson family. James came from money. They owned 3 successful car dealerships in Portland. They lived in this gorgeous house in the hills, had all the social status you could want, and they had very specific expectations about how their family legacy should continue. From the moment James proposed, Evelyn made it crystal clear that my primary job was to produce grandchildren. She would constantly make comments about future babies, suggest fertility diets, and even scheduled my first doctor's appointment without asking me. Looking back, I can see all the red flags I ignored. The way Evelyn's kindness always came with strings attached. How James expected me to handle all the emotional labor while he focused on business. The subtle ways they made me feel like I had to earn my place in their family. But that day in the hospital, when I suggested adoption as an alternative, Evelyn's response was so cruel it still makes my blood boil. She laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Adoption? You think we want some stranger's unwanted child? The whole point is to continue the family bloodline, not raise someone else's mistakes." Then James delivered the final blow. "This changes everything, Victoria. I'm married. You expecting children? A real family. What's the point now?" The drive home was 20 minutes of pure torture. When we got to their house, notice I said their house, not our house. Evelyn immediately called James's father to share the news, painting me as some kind of deceiver who had tricked their innocent son. Then came the conversation that would haunt me for years. James sat me down at the kitchen table and said, "We need to talk about our situation. I thought maybe we could work through this together, maybe explore other options. But no." He looked me in the eye and said, "My mother and I have been discussing this, and we think it's best if you move out." Move out? We were married. This was supposed to be our home, our life together. But James was done with me. He said, "What's the point of staying married if you can't give me children? I'm 30 years old. I don't want to waste more time on a dead-end relationship." They gave me until the next evening to pack my belongings and find somewhere else to go. James said he'd be filing for divorce within the week on grounds of inability to fulfill marital obligations. Can you believe that? After everything I had done for this family, after all the love and sacrifice, they were throwing me away like I was broken furniture they didn't want anymore. That night, I found myself in a cheap motel near the airport, with $67 in my checking account and about $800 in a small savings account that James didn't know about. I had nowhere to go, no real support system, and no idea how I was going to rebuild my life. You know what's crazy? Growing up, I had always been the girl who put others first. My parents died in a car accident when I was 19, leaving me completely alone. When I met James in college, he seemed like a gift from heaven, handsome, charming, from a wealthy family that I thought genuinely welcomed me. I had given up most of my friendships to focus on being the perfect wife. I worked part-time at a veterinary clinic while spending most of my energy trying to become exactly what they wanted me to be. I cooked elaborate Sunday dinners, maintained their pristine house, and endured Evelyn's constant criticism with a smile. But as I packed my single suitcase the next day, with Evelyn standing guard to make sure I didn't take anything she considered theirs, something unexpected happened. I felt relief. For the first time in years, I didn't have to worry about anyone's approval. I didn't have to pretend to enjoy family dinners where they talked about me like I wasn't there. I was free from their suffocating expectations and conditional love. The next few months were tough, but they were also transformative. I moved into a small studio apartment and threw myself into work. My supervisor at the veterinary clinic, Dr. Martinez, offered me an opportunity to manage a new mobile clinic program. House calls for elderly pet owners and busy families. This was my lifeline, guys. The mobile clinic meant a significant pay increase and the chance to build something meaningful from scratch. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt a spark of hope about the future. As I worked late into the night developing business plans, I kept thinking about James and Evelyn. They had thrown me away because they thought I was worthless. They had no idea that they had just freed me to discover my own potential. I found my footing, started enjoying my own company, and began learning what it meant to make decisions based solely on what I wanted, not what would please someone else. But then, 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I received a phone call that would change everything forever. The call came from David Morrison, a private investigator. He said he'd been hired to locate me regarding a matter of inheritance. My heart stopped. I had no living relatives that I knew of, and my parents had died with nothing but debt. But David explained something incredible. My father had an older brother named William Turner. There had been a falling out between them in their 20s, and my father had refused all contact. But William had never stopped looking for his lost family. William had been a successful tech entrepreneur who sold his company for $47 million. He had been living quietly in Seattle, managing his investments and searching for me. When he learned about my parents' death and later my divorce, he was heartbroken. His will left everything to me, along with a letter explaining why he had never given up looking. David Morrison told me I was inheriting approximately $52 million, plus properties in Seattle and Vancouver. I literally dropped the phone. The inheritance process took 3 months to complete, and I didn't make any dramatic changes until everything was finalized. But when that money finally transferred to my accounts, the reality hit me all at once. I was no longer Victoria Turner, struggling divorcee trying to rebuild her life. I was Victoria Turner, multi-millionaire with the power to do whatever I chose. My first major decision was about my living situation. I could have bought a mansion, but instead I purchased a beautiful contemporary house in Portland's Pearl District, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a stunning city view. My second decision was about my career. I loved working with animals, but I wanted to expand my impact. I established the Turner Foundation for Animal Welfare, focusing on providing veterinary care to low-income families and supporting no-kill shelters. Through my foundation work, I met Alexander Kane, a man who ran a successful sustainable energy company and served on nonprofit boards purely because he believed in giving back. He was everything James had never been: intelligent, kind, genuinely interested in making the world better, and completely unimpressed by my wealth. When I told him about my divorce and the cruel way it ended, he listened without judgment. Then, he said something that made me cry. They threw away someone extraordinary, but their loss gave you the freedom to become who you were meant to be. Alexander and I fell in love, real love, not the conditional love I had experienced with James. 6 months after we met, he proposed during a quiet weekend at his cabin in the mountains. "I want to build a life with you," he said as he got down on one knee. "Whatever that looks like, wherever it takes us. You're not broken, Victoria. You're perfect exactly as you are." 2 years after our wedding, we received the call we had been waiting for. Our adoption was approved. We were matched with twin 4-year-old siblings, Grace and Michael, who needed a permanent home together. The day we brought them home was the happiest of my life. Watching Alexander help Grace arrange her stuffed animals, seeing Michael's shy smile when I read him his first bedtime story, I finally understood what real family meant. It had nothing to do with genetics or bloodlines and everything to do with chosen love and commitment. Around the same time our family was coming together, I started hearing disturbing rumors about the Wilson family business. David Morrison mentioned that he had been hired by several former customers who claimed they had been defrauded. The Wilson dealerships had been selling cars with rolled back odometers and forged maintenance records. The state attorney general was investigating, and criminal charges were likely. But here's the most ironic part. They had been doing this for years, probably since before I was married to James, which means they were using dirty money to pay for those fertility treatments. They always held over my head. The money they used as another weapon in their arsenal of cruelty? It was stolen from innocent customers all along. When David told me they were going to lose everything and would probably have to declare bankruptcy, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. The bankruptcy hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in downtown Portland. I had been tracking their legal troubles through public records, watching as their empire crumbled under the weight of investigation and lawsuits. James and Evelyn would be required to appear in court to surrender their assets and explain their financial situation to creditors. It would be the most humiliating day of their privileged lives, and I wanted them to see exactly what they had thrown away. I arrived at the courthouse wearing a perfectly tailored designer suit, my hair styled elegantly, carrying a leather portfolio with our adoption paperwork and recent family photos. Alexander was beside me, looking devastatingly handsome in his custom navy suit. When we walked into the courtroom, I spotted them immediately. James looked haggard and desperate, his expensive clothes wrinkled, his face showing months of stress. Evelyn appeared to have aged a decade, her usually perfect appearance disheveled, her famous confidence nowhere to be seen. I deliberately walked past their table to find seats in the gallery. James looked up first, and I watched his face cycle through confusion, recognition, and pure shock. "Victoria," he whispered loud enough for Evelyn to hear. She whipped around so fast I thought she might give herself whiplash. Her mouth fell open as she took in my transformation, the expensive clothes, the confident posture, the handsome man beside me, the undeniable aura of success and happiness. "Hello, James." "Evelyn," I said pleasantly, as if we were running into each other at a coffee shop instead of their financial ruin. "How lovely to see you again." I took my seat and opened my portfolio, making sure they could see the adoption papers inside. Then I waited for the hearing to begin, savoring every moment of their obvious panic and confusion. The bankruptcy hearing was everything I had hoped it would be. James and Evelyn lost their house, their car dealerships, and their social standing. When the criminal charges were filed, James was sentenced to 4 years in prison for fraud, while Evelyn was forced to move into a small apartment and take a job as a grocery store cashier to pay her legal debts. Their cruelty and greed had finally caught up with them, leaving them with nothing but the bitter taste of consequences they had spent years avoiding. As I walked out of that courthouse hand in hand with Alexander, my heart full of love for our adopted children waiting at home, I felt a profound sense of closure. The woman they had called worthless and thrown away like trash was now living a life of purpose and abundance, while they faced each day knowing their own actions had destroyed everything they once held dear. Looking back on my journey from their victim to my own victor, I realized that their rejection had been the greatest gift they could have given me. It freed me to discover who I truly was when I stopped trying to earn love that was never real. Here's what I want you to take away from this story. Your worth is not determined by other people's expectations or limitations. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing that could happen to you. James and Evelyn thought they were discarding a broken, worthless woman. They had no idea they were actually freeing someone who would go on to build an empire of love, success, and genuine happiness. The future stretched ahead of us, bright with possibility, more children to love, more lives to touch through our foundation, and the deep satisfaction of building something meaningful together. And the best part, every single day, I get to wake up knowing that I am exactly where I'm meant to be, surrounded by people who love me for who I am, not what I can produce for them. If you're going through something difficult right now, if someone has made you feel worthless or broken, remember this: their opinion of you is not your reality. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are actually doing us the biggest favor by showing us who they really are and freeing us to find our real tribe. Alright, everyone, that's my story. I know it was a long one, but I hope it inspired you or gave you hope if you're going through a tough time. If this resonated with you, please give this video a massive thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm and lets me know you want to hear more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss my uploads. I've got so many more incredible stories to share with you all, and please, leave a comment below telling me about a time when someone's rejection turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories. 2. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and all the good things life has to offer. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep being amazing.